feel the Spirit moving in me. I feel the Spirit moving in me. I feel the Spirit moving in me.
Ooh, that feels good. And it feels good to be back. I'm so grateful for the 3-week sabbatical I experienced because I come back strong, ready. And I'm so excited about our opportunity to look at the Beatitudes. For the next 8 weeks, we're going to focus on the power of this awesome teaching. Looking and researching this today, I am again awestruck that this man, Jesus of Nazareth, got to this place where he could teach such profound wisdom in just a few words, in the Beatitudes. Now we know this is a Sermon on the Mount. We know it's part of our Christian faith. But there's much to be revealed by looking at scholars, Aramaic scholars, biblical scholars, to see what is really underneath these powerful phrases. So our talk title today is The Beatitudes, a Way of Life. Let's start by looking at the wisdom of Emmett Fox, a great New Thought writer. The Beatitudes are actually a prose poem in 8 verses, which is complete in itself. And it constitutes what is practically a general summary of the whole Christian teaching. It is spiritual, more than a literary synopsis, summarizing the spirit of teaching rather than the letter. Now, this is important because, as we know, the book we call the Bible was translated from its original language multiple times. In fact, our New Testament was primarily written in Aramaic, which is a living language. There are people still speaking Aramaic. And it was translated into Greek. And then it was translated into Latin, and then it was translated into English or German or French or whatever. It's the book that's most translated by anybody. Now, I don't know if you've ever translated anything, but when you translate, you infuse it with your own understanding. So what we're going to actually do is we're going to spend a little time going back and looking at the Aramaic. We're not going to look at the Aramaic, but we're going to see what does the Aramaic mean. Now, one of the beautiful things about the Aramaic language, much like the Hawaiian language and other languages, each word, each sentence has multiple layers of meanings. Now, how do you find your way through that? Because this is why it's a spiritual understanding. So let's go ahead and let's look at the passage that's in Matthew chapter 5, verse 3. Blessed are the poor in spirit, for theirs is the kingdom of heaven. Now, this is profound to realize that there's something missing in the translation. Because if we've already been instructed by Emmett Fox to not do it, to look at this literally, we'd say, if we're really poor, if we're really broken, then we can have heaven. And that's not what this means. It's just not where it comes. There's a wonderful Aramaic, actually grew up speaking Aramaic, Dr. George Lamsa. He translated a version of the Bible completely just from Aramaic to the English. And boy, it speaks very differently than what we're accustomed to by our various virgins. But Dr. George Lamsa says that in Aramaic, poor in spirit is a traditional Aramaic idiom meaning humble. Blessed are the humble, for theirs is the kingdom of heaven. How does that feel? It feels very different than poor in spirit. But if we're going to look at this, we need to sit back and allow this understanding to relate to us. Emmett Fox continues to write about this. To be poor in spirit, in quotes, means to have emptied yourself of all the desire to exercise personal self-will, and it's just as important to have renounced all preconceived opinions in the wholehearted search for God. To have got rid of the love of money and property, of fear and public opinion, and of disapproval of relatives or friends. I think this is a common goal. This is to be gentler, to be filled with unconditional love, to be open and accept people just as they are. Because there's nothing anyone else is experiencing. I used to have a lot of trouble with my brother until I sat back and I recognized that everything I was judging my brother at doing, I had done the same thing, but I hadn't accepted it in myself. But it was very comfortable to judge my brother. This is human behavior. But as we open ourselves to be humble, to be in humility, we can open ourselves to allowing ourselves to arrive in heaven. This is something we can experience every day. The kingdom of heaven is within us. Now, in this Aramaic tradition and Jesus' teachings were all based in the breath. The birther and breath of all is God. And the words within this Aramaic text for this beatitude is the breath being present now. What happens when we take a nice deep breath? Inhale and exhale. We're more present with the now moment. Now, it's important we do relate to the Beatitudes as an embodiment of it. That's what when we listen to poetry, we take the metaphor, the image of the poetry, and allow us to transport it to a deeper understanding of ourselves. So this is kind of like, think of your favorite restaurant. For me, it's probably a Mexican restaurant. But choose your restaurant. You're thinking about going to your favorite restaurant. So that's the stimulation, it's the memory, it's that intellectual. Yes? You get into the restaurant, you're seated at the table, you get the menu, and oh, there's wonderful specials today. And you've got to look at the specials and the items on the menu. Still, it's distant. It's just the idea of having a meal. It's not the meal. Even when you call the waiter over and you put your order in, it goes into the kitchen, then the kitchen puts the garlic and puts this and that and puts it all together and displays it on the plate, all ready for you to eat. It's still a concept. And then we start to eat it. And, oh, that tastes just like I thought it was going to taste. Or, ooh, that's very exciting. I've never tasted that before. And then when we digest it, then there's a whole complex thing that goes inside our body to assimilate the nutrition and stuff from that meal. Now we've embodied the meal. We've been fed. We've been restored. This is how we need to approach the teaching. It's only an idea until we can own it for ourselves. And so I'm going to conclude this talk with Neil Douglas Klotz is a fabulous Aramaic scholar who I studied with when I got my master's in spirituality. A wonderful man. And he says, this is his recommended retranslation from Aramaic to English of the Beatitude that we're looking at today. Blessed are those who are refined in breath. They shall find their ruling principles and ideals guided by God's light. There's so many interpretations. And what works for us is to find an interpretation that feeds us. So let's breathe in humility. Let's breathe in that right now God's light is informing us and guiding us. And when we can approach God with no preconceived idea, no, God should do this, God should think this, God should do, let go of all the shoulds and have-tos, the rules that we've given God. And I don't know about you, but I've given in my lifetime a whole bunch of rules to God. Just wipe them out and be present by breathing easy and allowing God to inform us now. For blessed are the humble, for theirs is the kingdom of heaven. Let's take this into meditation now.
Om Shanti. 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 Om Shanti.
Right now, we are here. Wherever we are, let's breathe into the now moment and allow ourselves to settle into this now moment. Breathing in and breathing out. Breathing in and breathing out. Let's take a moment where everything's set aside. No expectation, no assumption, just peace. And as we turn within and connect with God, Goddess, principle, divine identity, allow ourselves to be willing to listen. And as we rest in this moment, we take this moment to listen to Spirit in the silence. The kingdom of heaven is always with us. All we need do is let go of our personal self-will, of the to-do list, of the have-tos and the gotta, and allow ourselves to breathe into the now moment. And therein lie God's light that guides us, renews us, and heals us. And we're grateful for this opportunity that's available anytime we want to take it. And that's a blessing. And so from this, we say thank you for this moment. We take from it whatever we've received, and then we bring our awareness back to where we are with our eyes open, available, and ready to take in the rest of the day. And then let's say this affirmation that goes with the talk today. Together, centered and aligned with God, I find myself living heaven now. Again, centered and aligned with God, I find myself living heaven now. One more time. Centered and aligned with God, I find myself living heaven now. And so it is.
Step out on the water, release your faith. Every step is stronger. Step out on the water.